Hi everyone, day 28, and I'm just coming off about 3.5 hours of on Zoom because I didn't make a video before, and now I'm exhausted, but I'm committed to this, so here I am. I had an absolutely spectacular day. It just was one of those days. The weather was so beautiful. And I had my sessions in the afternoon, so at some point, I just got dressed and went outside and took all of my work to a park. Beautiful park. I was sitting in the shade of a tree and just looking at flowers. And what was really lovely is I got there before lunch, and then during lunch, like, all these people came and every bench was taken and all the chairs and people were picnicking and eating. And then again, it was really interesting. By 2:30, many people were already gone, and I went. And I actually took myself out for lunch today. It was so nice because then it gave me a little bit more time to kind of rest and prep for my session. I just had a community gathering about people pleasing, and it was an interesting conversation, talking about the biological aspect of it and how it's not a conscious choice. It's biological imperative to survive, and we've inherited it from our ancestors, and probably also, through observation of how our parents behaved when we were growing up. It's really, really hard pattern to break out of, because our ancestors were getting their survival and belonging from fawning, from people pleasing, right? Being part of the community was so important. You couldn't survive on your own. And it's not really the case anymore. Not that we'd want to be on our own, unless we do. But, today we are confronting something that wasn't even open to or really available to our ancestors, which is choice between authenticity and attachment. And as children, as we're developing, as we're helpless children, we need the attention of our caregivers, and the attachment is everything. Our survival as children is directly dependent on our capacity to be well bonded with our caregivers. However, so we develop all the strategies for it, and then when we grow up and go into our adult relationships, we unfortunately continue fawning and people pleasing, if that is what we were used to doing in childhood, and that's not very conducive to the kind of intimate, deep, and vulnerable relationships that we all crave these days. So we're really the first generation that is actively seeking to break out from, or rather not break out from anything, but rather where we choose authenticity over attachment. And not everyone, and there is nothing wrong with whatever the choice is. It's just good to be aware, consciously aware about what choice we make, so that it's not automatic. But what happens is that when we continue falling into adulthood, we're not even relating from who we are, right? Because we're so used to we're not even aware of our boundaries, and we're not aware of our needs. Because what I'm learning about fawning is it's a hybrid response. It's the energy that wants to say no, or that wants to protect our needs or boundaries, is being stifled. It freezes, and the performative aspect comes online. So if we bring that same formula to our adult relationships, then we are in performance more than actual reality and the truth of who we are. And to learn to break out of it touches us viscerally, because it hasn't been modeled for us. All of our society constantly rewards fawning, and we are rewarded to it at work, for it at work. We're rewarded for it in our families. So to learn to be with the discomfort of possible rupture in our relationships is what is required to be able to speak your truth. And another thing that is interesting, and I know I've observed it with my husband as well, when I started changing my typical fawning behavior to like speaking my truth and saying no, and being more outspoken and having my own opinion and all that stuff, he took it as a rejection, because it's like he was almost feeling like, what did you do with my wife? It was almost a shock. So that's what was so difficult, and that's what created so many difficulties, is that I was changing and he couldn't understand who I was, because for decades I was a good girl and a pleaser, and so he couldn't understand like what's going on and what did he do wrong. And he didn't do anything wrong. I was just changing and coming into a stage in my life where suddenly authenticity was becoming more and more important, and to the extent that I felt so stifled in who I was. My true nature kind of really wanted to come out, and I was prepared to rupture relationships in order to be truthful and loyal to myself. So it's a very complicated situation, and I think many people do attempt to do this in their relationships, but when they encounter rupture, they are, not everybody is prepared to deal with that. So some of us go back to pleasing or to censoring what we say. And there is nothing, again, there is no right or wrong. These are just the choices that we make. As long as they're conscious, then we can, as long as we're conscious and we understand why we do what we do, why we choose what we choose, that's really all that's necessary. As long as we are okay with the choices that we make, that's really all that matters. So this is what I did today. We spoke for 2 hours. It was beautiful, a lovely group of women. And now I'm quite tired. And what I'm noticing right now is I would have loved to get a glass of wine right now, because I feel like really, activated, and I was expending a lot of energy, and having a glass of wine would probably like take the edge off, but I don't have anything at home. And it's interesting for me also to observe these things and to notice where I would reach out for something outside of myself to regulate my system, which is what most of society does. And I'm going to try instead to either do some stretching or something of that sort. Maybe do some stretching, because I'm not hungry. I'm aware of that. It would be easy to like take a cookie or something, but I'm not going to try not to do that, because the sugar is certainly not going to help. I might just stretch or just recline and rest a little bit, so that I can go to sleep afterward, because it's now after 9 p.m. All right, that's me for today, but a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day. Honestly, Paris was so spectacular today, like it is every day. It just feels like a feast. It feels like just like a constant celebration in this town. So yeah, it was a beautiful day. I'm grateful. I'll see you tomorrow.